welcome back to my channel. It's Megan, and today we are talking about all of the books I read in September. It was my best reading month of the year, both quantity, quality was really good there. I wouldn't say best quality, but quality was pretty top-notch. I also finished a lot of physical TBR, and I finished a lot of books that I've had for review for a while on NetGalley. So I have a lot of digital ones that are gonna go here, so bear with me. We'll go ahead and start with those so we can go ahead and get through them pretty quickly. So we'll just go through the NetGalley reviews I did. And first up we have Someone to Talk To. This is a graphic novel following a young man, or rather middle-aged man, who's trying to figure out his life, and it's just a very monotonous life, and he's feeling very lonely. He ends up drunk calling his ex, and his ex is like, just leave me alone, get a life. So he calls his old childhood home and expects it to either not anyone to not pick up or it to be a new person. What he doesn't expect is for his younger self to answer the phone. And so he keeps up this constant communication with his younger self, and he tries to fix things from the past, and ultimately figures out anything that happens that he's able to change from the past does not affect his current life. So it's up to him to take it into his hands and live up to the goals and dreams that his younger self had, and his younger self motivates him to do that. It was a pretty good little graphic novel. I really wasn't a fan of the illustrations, but I think the message was pretty nice. It was a little bit disjointed, and I'm not a huge fan of who the guy ended up with, but overall it was a nice little graphic novel. Next up we have Little Sister. This was also a graphic novel, and it's following the story and life of three sisters, specifically from the point of view of the littlest sister. And we do get some outtakes of the Holocaust and how that affected people and what being a different race meant in America at the time. So those were nice little outtakes, but overall the story felt very disjointed. It didn't really feel like it had an overarching plot. It just felt like story. It felt like a bunch of short stories rather than a full story, and it didn't feel like it meshed well together, but it was cute. The illustrations were okay. They weren't my favorite. They weren't awful, but I think it was a nice little story about sisters, I guess. Next up we have The Whale Library. This was also a graphic novel. In this one we are following an elderly man who serves as a sea postal carrier, and one day on his way to carry the mail across the sea, he gets submerged in the water from this whale kind of breaching, and the whale apologizes and explains she only comes up at night because she's trying to avoid the whale poacher people. And it goes into how she has this hidden library within her stomach, and so she and the man exchange stories and talk about their favorite books and that sort of thing. It's very precious, very cute, and I think it does a good job of not only one, save the whales, but two, literature is important. It has that beautiful message. It does have some scenes that I would not recommend for children, so it's not necessarily a children's book, but the artwork in it is really beautiful. Next is Empty Eyes. You'll notice a theme here. It's also a graphic novel, and it is following a young set of siblings, and it's taking place during World War I, and these siblings are tasked with providing meat for the orphanage. And it's revealed pretty early on, so it's not like a spoiler, it's revealed that the soldiers that get lost or are abandoned nearby during this war are what the children use for meat. So it's cannibalism, and it's a little creepy. Very creepy, very creepy. The artwork is beautiful and totally gets the whole vibe across, and it definitely fits the narrative of what it's trying to get across of this poverty and creepy gore and horror. Definitely a interesting horror graphic novel for the spooky season, so I would recommend. Next we have Masks. In this we are following a set of different perspectives in which these young adult or teenage children are feeling specific ways, and they are somehow gifted these masks that give them the powers to achieve getting them out of these bad situations. So for example, one is transitioning at the time and is identifying as male but keeps getting misgendered, and they are working through that. The mask gives them the power to turn into this like Herculean character and be the man that they've been trying to be. Another is trying to escape authorities, and the mask gives her the ability to disappear. So just these sort of things are happening, and I think it's a good setup to a really interesting superhero series. However, I will say the transitions between perspectives is not clear. It's very muddled. It's not clear that it is transitioning and that we are in a new perspective, so I felt myself confused at times. The final graphic novel I had for review from NetGalley was Ancient Dreams. Do not bother reading this. It sucked. It was awful. Just don't even try to like understand what this graphic novel is saying because it was awful. The synopsis sounds amazing. It's supposed to be about this girl and this goddess whose lives are intertwined. I never got that. It was like text within the pages, and it felt like a novel that was trying to be a picture book rather than a graphic novel because there was just like pages of text, and it was so hard to follow. There was random quotes that had nothing to do with anything. There was just pages of art that had nothing to do with anything. It was all over the place. I gave it 1 star. I would have DNF'd it, except it was very short and I just did it for the review. Please don't waste your time with this one. It was awful. I lied. I have one more graphic novel. That is The Secret Garden. This was a very, very cute adaptation of The Secret Garden. I've never personally read the novel, and I only have vague recollections of the movie version, but if this manga is anything to go off of, I really do want to read the story soon because it seemed really cute. Okay, that was the last graphic novel. I do have a couple books. So the first is Hunters of the Lost City, and this is a middle grade following the society in which this town believes that they are the last people on Earth, and they are surrounded by this wall that protects them from these monsters that roam. They only roam at night, so the only rule in this town is that you can go out all you want, but if you are out at night, you're getting locked out. We shut the gate at a specific time and we don't open it till morning because of these monsters. Our main character, who's like this like young girl, gets locked out at night. They're not gonna open the gate for her, and so she goes to the guard tower and discovers a stranger. Strangers are not heard of because if you remember, these people think they are the last people alive. So she starts learning from this stranger and learns maybe they're not the last people alive after all, and maybe this town has just been spewing lies to us, and it turns into so much more. It's a really cute little middle grade novel. The setting and depicting of this world is really done well, and I enjoyed it. I would definitely read the next book if there is one, but I'm pretty sure it like ended kind of vaguely, so I think it is a standalone, but I think it could also turn into a sequel if needed. Next we have Just Like Magic, which is the Hallmark Christmas book novel of your Hallmark Christmas dreams. I just scratched my nose and it's all red, but I guess that's appropriate. I'm just Rudolph right now for the Christmas book. I'm gonna be honest, it started off pretty poorly. I almost DNF'd it in the beginning. The main character was so unlikable, and our person who I thought was going to be the romance lead felt very childish, very Buddy the Elf. But essentially our main character, she used to be a really popular content creator, but after a really bad breakup with a famous person, she kind of got canceled and she's struggling, and she gets drunk one night and plays a Mariah Carey vinyl backwards, and it unleashes the holiday spirit, which is basically the personification of Christmas, and he's so fun, but he is very Buddy the Elf. They together and with the family learn what Christmas means. So very cheesy, very Hallmark, but very good for the holiday season. Okay, I did have one more, but I'll touch base on it later when I talk about a different book I read because it relates. So now we'll go into some of the standalones that I read this month. First we have City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert, where you're following a young girl who kind of gets exiled from her parents because she is just not doing anything with her life, and she is sent to America to live with her Aunt Peg in New York City, and she gets pulled into the life of this showgirl life, like theater. The descriptions of the theater and stuff were really fun. It's very much in line with people who enjoy Taylor Jenkins Reid, so if you enjoy like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo or Daisy Jones and the Six, I would recommend that you read this one. I'm probably never gonna read it again, but it was enjoyable for the first read. Next we have The Coldest Touch by Isabel Sterling. This is a standalone novel following a young girl who is cursed with the touch, and when she touches someone she envisions what their death is going to look like, and she feels this immense guilt because she kind of foresaw her brother's death and didn't stop it from happening, so she's dealing with that on top of this curse, and she's just isolating herself from everyone. And then we're following a vampire who's supposed to be like her guardian. It turns into like a sapphic romance, so there you go. Next we have Tweet Cute, which is a young adult contemporary following Pepper, who is the daughter of this like burger franchise, and Jack, who is the son of a small diner, and these two establishments get into a Twitter war because the franchise stole a recipe from the diner right down to the name of the recipe, and there's just this huge Twitter war happening, and these two got roped into being the people tweeting, and they're also friends in school, and they're also anonymously chatting on this like high school website thing. So there's a lot of layers to their relationship, but it was a pretty cute graphic. Why do I keep saying graphic? It was a pretty cute story. Next we have Romanov, which is a reimagining of Anastasia Romanov, in which we are following Anastasia Natsia Romanov. So Natsia's one task in this whole thing happening is that she is supposed to smuggle this really important spell no matter where they go. So her family gets taken and imprisoned, and she's supposed to like keep this spell because it's going to save her family in their worst moment. It was a really good reimagining, and I would definitely recommend this for people who like retellings, who like Anastasia. It was a good book. Next we have Instructions for Dancing, which is a young adult contemporary following a young girl whose parents are getting divorced, so she has just given up on love, and she one day takes all of her romance novels to a little free library and exchanges them for a just instruction manual for instructions for dancing. And then she sees where this manual is located from, like there's a sticker that says if lost return to this dance studio, and she takes it back to this dance studio and starts to learn on the way that she is now gifted with the power that when she sees a couple kiss, she's going to see their entire romance from beginning to end. And this gift has given her even more reason to dislike like romance and give up on love, because everything ends in heartbreak, whether they break up or they die or whatever. Everything ends in heartbreak, so what's the point of love? And while she's at this dance studio, she meets a guy that makes her rethink everything. So there you go. Also, I threw this book, thank you. Watch the reading vlog if you'd like to find out more. The final standalone I read this September, this month, whatever you want to call it, I don't know where I'm going with that, is Lockdown on London Lane, which is an adult romance fiction novel. This is the first book I've read that references what happened in 2020. So they literally get locked down in their apartment because of the pandemic and the virus spreading, and we're following the different perspectives from each apartment, and it's so good. I highly recommend this one. Next are two duologies I read all the way through. First we have Bone Criers Moon and Bone Criers Dawn. In this we are following these two bone criers who are tasked with ferrying the dead. But in order to gain their full power and bury the dead, they have to commit the ultimate sacrifice, and that is to sacrifice their true love and kill their true love. And we are also following a young man who watched this happen to his father. His father was killed right in front of him, so his entire life has been revenge on these bone criers. So everything changes when one day our main character is summoning her true love through the ritual, and the guy is the one that appears. So it's just this really intense novel about what's most important. Is sacrifice really important? Is burying the dead important? Blah blah blah, and it's really good. And the other duology I read is The Merciful Crow and The Faithful Talk. This is following a set of casts, and the crows are the lowest. We are following the main point of view of the up-and-coming chief named Fi, and she is of the crow caste, which is the lowest caste of all, and she has bone magic, and they're smuggling the prince away from the evil stepmother and trying to get him back on the throne, and there's just so much going on. But I adore this duology so much. It's definitely one of my top duologies, if not my favorite of all time. Next, we will talk about the book series I started. First, we have Crossbones, and then we're circling back to that one that I said I was going to talk about later, Dark Tides. This is a trilogy. Only the first 2 books I've released, but it is such a fun series. In Crossbones, we are following the pirate Bone King trials. I forget what they're called, but essentially the Bone King has passed and they have to decide who's going to be the next monarch through these trials, and all 5 captains of the pirate fleet are in this trial, and it's so good. I had so much fun. Dark Tides, you guys, I don't think my jaw has dropped, and I've never seen something coming, and the way that this book literally had me in a chokehold till the end. So definitely read this series, and I can't wait for book 3. I can't believe like book 2 isn't even out yet technically. I think it comes out on the 18th of October, so I'm just happy I had an early release arc of it to read. But yeah, this book is good. Next, in honor of the movie coming out later this month, I read the first 2 books of The School for Good and Evil. I enjoyed this series so much. I definitely could have seen myself reading and loving and devouring this as a younger middle school age kid, but I'm still having fun with it now, and I'm really enjoying it. So book 1, we're following Agatha and Sophie, who have always believed they're gonna end up at the School for Good and Evil, except they get switched. So Sophie ends up at the School for Evil, Agatha ends up at the School for Good, and they've always thought the opposite. And it goes into a lot about like what means good and what means evil kind of thing. So I really enjoyed that. I did remove a star for it because it does have some fatphobic issues. I think it tries to challenge them, but I'm not sure it quite does it well enough. And then book 2 was a little bit weird. It backed some of the things up, but it also contradicted some of the things from book 1. So it was just all over the place. But I'm still excited for the movie, and I'm still gonna read the rest of the series. And finally, my last section is the graphic novels and manga I read this month that I physically own, because we already went through the ones that I did ebook wise. But first we have Anne of Green Gables, the manga. This is so fun. If you love Anne of Green Gables, I highly recommend picking this one up. It's really cute. There you go. Next we have all 3 books of the Little Witch Academia manga, as well as the Little Witch Academia light novel. This series is so chaotic. I was so confused about everything happening, and I think I did myself an injustice by not watching the anime first. I'm just always been like a book first person, so I didn't realize it would have been helpful to watch the anime first. So I'm definitely going to be watching the anime soon. But yeah, these are just this chaotic story about this young girl who sees a magic show and decides she's going to be a witch. Stops at nothing, truly stops at nothing to become this witch. And she's just not good at magic at all. And she just never gives up, so good for her. But yeah, it's chaos in a manga, basically. And the final books of September are the Tea Dragon graphic novels. So we have the Tea Dragon Society, the Tea Dragon Festival, and the Tea Dragon Tapestry. And there's truly no other series of graphic novels. It just warms my heart more than the series. It does such a good job of like diversity in all aspects between like sexuality, disability, race, culture, basically every type of diversity you can think of is so beautifully displayed in here, and I love it so much. And it's just also a really heartwarming story, and everything is so cute. The artwork is beautiful, like breathtakingly adorable, and I just love this series so much, so pick it up. So those are all of the books I read in September. Let me know what you guys read in September down below, and I'll check in with you in my next one. Bye, friends.